got Triple Play Radio, and our speakers are going to be Senator Bill Coleman, who owns the station, and Steve Daniels, who does the morning program. I know you shouldn't use the word love real often, but I love Triple Play Sports Radio. And I'm appreciative of the app that you could take all around the world to hear that station. I think the world of, and again, I know I shouldn't name names because I'm not naming them all, but I think a lot of Jordan Woodruff, I think a lot of Steve Daniels in the morning program, the Scramble. Senator Halligan has said on occasion, he said that the Scramble is our morning newspaper. And we've got one of your folks from the newspaper that's on Triple Play Sports Radio a couple of times a week. And then, of course, I enjoy hearing all the guests that Steve has on his program. Several of them, Senator Coleman, of course, Jesse, Kyle Ray. We've got the music department at NOC and at OSU, emergency services, and the list goes on. I appreciate Simmons Bank and what they do to support that program with the Morning Scramble. And when you think about sports, you think about Triple Play Sports Radio. You think about Jordan, Robert Allen, Casey Kendrick, a member of our own group here, Tom Dorado, Bill Annan, Kent Houck, all of those people that are interviewed often. I really believe without Triple Play Sports Radio, we wouldn't have a megaphone that brings our community together and shouts loud, OSU. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Steve.
I'm going to be real short because I'll just hand it over to Senator Coleman here. But they say, no, I will be. I think I have to speak afterwards too, which is bad advice because you should never follow a horse or politician in a parade. First said by Mark Twain, then by Trish Ranson. So, who's on tomorrow, by the way. So we'll talk more about that coming up. But I've worked for Senator Coleman since 2005. I think that's right. Is that correct? I started a little earlier than that, but I knew him beforehand from broadcasters conventions and stuff like that. And we kind of started a friendship then, I think. But now I've worked for him, and I can tell you he's the best boss I ever had for a number of reasons. But one, he gives you freedom, and there's no micromanaging if he trusts you. And you have to earn that trust, first of all. But maybe that's the way every business ought to work. But it's hard. But for that fact, it's the best place to work in town, I think. I'll let him speak, and then I'll follow up a little bit. But here is State Senator Bill Coleman.
Steve, thank you very much for that extremely lengthy introduction. Appreciate it very much. I'm real excited to be here today with my fellow Rotarians. I am what you call a dues-paying Rotarian. That's all I do is pay my dues. I want to give you some history of Triple Play Sports Radio. That's what Jimmy wanted me to talk about today, and I'm pleased to talk about that, not politics. The stations originally were licensed to Perry, Oklahoma, and myself and my then two business partners purchased them in 1998. The radio stations then were located on the square in downtown Perry, right next to Ace's Bar. And once we realized how Perry supports a radio station, we wound up in Ace's Bar a lot. Because it's just not a big enough market to support radio stations today. So what we did is we looked to move into Stillwater at some point. And we did that later. We started off with the FM station 105.1. It was 70s hits. We played classic hits of the 70s on there. And I got a call from the network one day and they said, great news. We're going to end the 70s format and we're going to do classic rhythm and blues. And I was like, I don't know that that's going to work that well in Oklahoma. So we kind of did some moving around and got some things done. But eventually we got into Stillwater in about 2001. We moved into the studios that are across the street from Aspen Coffee there on 7th Street. At the time, the first thing on the air that was related to Oklahoma State sports was Tom Dorado. Tom Dorado does a Sunday night oldies show, and he still does it at 6 o'clock every Sunday night on 105.1. If you've never heard it, I encourage you to listen to it, because if there ever was anybody that sounded like an old-time rock and roll disc jockey, it's Tom Dorado. He does a very good job with that. So I got him in there. At the time, the FM station was doing the 70s talk. The AM signal, 1580 and 1020, it was talk format. At one point, the late Pat Osmond called me. He was working for me down here trying to sell. And he said, I think Robert Allen is looking to leave where he's at and is wanting to talk to us. So that's what happened. We talked to Robert. I hired him, I think, in 2001, and he started a show on just 1020 and 1580 AM from 9 to 1. And it was kind of getting to the point where we realized there's something here. There's something really good here. So my then business partner, Ken Greenwood, my mentor, he said, Bill, this sports thing's taken off. Why don't you put it on the FM as well? Which was a shocker to me. I was an old radio dog. You don't put talk on FM. You keep it music all the time. But I bit the bullet, and that's when we invented triple play, is when we found out that we're going to be on 3 signals, 105.1, 1020, and 1580. We added another show from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. So we had Robert starting at 9, and then we had another show at 1. And then after that, we had the student section running from 3 to 5. So all of a sudden we were starting to be live and local, except in the morning. And that's when Steve came in about 2005, and we started the morning scramble. And Steve said, here, go with it, buddy, whatever you want to do. We had a co-host at the time, Chris Johnson, that was in there with Steve at all times. And that really solidified where the radio station was going, was the morning scramble, because it was so local and it was being heard by people everywhere. And it still is. It is the anchor of the day. And it's, Steve, it's probably one of the main reasons Triple Play Sports is successful today, is the morning scramble, because as Jimmy said, being a megaphone for the community is so important, because in radio today, we're so much corporately owned, satellite program, that it is so important to succeed in radio by being local. What we want to Triple Play is be as local as possible. We've got lots of local programming on Triple Play right now that we're very proud of. At one point, we started our own football pregame show, and I believe it was an hour when we did it, wasn't it, Steve? Well, yeah, we kept adding to it. Now the pregame show starts 5 hours before kickoff. And the postgame show goes 3 hours after kickoff. So we don't carry the games on Triple Play, but we certainly do talk about them a lot. During the games now, you'll hear guys give score updates and still keep the talk going. So now our football programming is about 14 hours. And I talked to a radio station owner in Lincoln. They said, well, that's close to our 18 hours of programming that we have on our station on game day. So the football has certainly worked out very well for us. We started a basketball pregame, and that's worked out well for us. As some of the professionalism that Steve and Jordan and the other members of the crew showed off was on the homecoming tragedy. I was listening to the radio and I was scanning across, and these guys were doing the best job. They, no more sports talk. We're talking about this. Jordan went on site, and I was just more proud of those guys that day than I have been any other time they've been on the air. That they really showed their true professionalism that day. We did win an OAB award for that, and we do have several OAB awards sitting down at the studios at Triple Play Sports Radio. But the morning scramble, it has become what's going on in Stillwater, and it will continue to be that. I'm a weekly guest, and I didn't even ask to be. Steve asked me to be, so I'm proud to do that. With that, folks, I do have to leave here in a little bit, but I'd love to take any questions you guys have on the radio stations and where we're going. Yes, sir. Why do we not continue to have the live streaming of the Stillwater Jukebox on Sunday nights? Right. That's a good question, and I'll give you a good answer. It's called royalty payments. Right. Right now, we're licensed with the royalty organizations to be a talk station. And if we were to put that online, I think it would put us into the category of being a music station. And when you're a music station, 3.75% of your gross goes to the royalties of your gross. So it's right. Well, Steve's talk, Tom's music. when we get that music in there, it just throws it into a whole new different category, and it makes it expensive on our part. I've got some music stations, and I will tell you, it hurts. It hurts to give up 3.75% of your gross. Yes, sir. Okay. How do you know if you're successful is the question. And the advertiser's input is certainly, yeah, things are going good. Things are going really, really good. Coming to meetings like this, hearing when I'm walking in the Capitol, Senator Yeck from Kingfisher goes, Coleman, I heard you on the Triple Play Sports the other day. And that's what I hear more in this market than any other market is, hey, I heard you on the radio. Trish is a good example. She knows that people are listening out there. So I think just input from coming out into meetings, emails, phone calls, things of that nature, it will help. Now there is a company called Nielsen that does radio ratings, and currently they've changed things to where the only way you will be listed in their ratings is to subscribe to their service, which is a few $1,000s a year. And my ratings, the last time I bought ratings was 18 years ago, because I think my ratings are Kent Houck's and other advertisers. And if they're telling me I'm doing good, I think that's my ratings there. Right. You know, yeah, that's how you know. And that was an interesting moment in Triple Play's history, is when we came up with the free app to where you can listen worldwide now. And we do have people listening on the app when they're out of state and even out of country. So that's been a big help for us. That's the only real measuring device. If you want to say how many people are listening, well, we can go to the stream and say, well, we know online at 6 a.m., 700 people were listening and 90% of them were in America and We can get that information off the stream, but we still have our over-the-air signals where we can't really get much measurement as far as audience goes. Yes, Scott. Is the general health of the radio business across the country still pretty strong? It if you're local. If you're just churning out the same factory stuff all across your radio dial, you're really not very successful. I will say this, that right now our fourth quarter has been our biggest quarter since 2007 as far as sales goes. So we're really doing good right now. I think a lot of that's got to do with a lot of people spending money with business, and businesses are ready to advertise to get that money. So it's been a really, really good year. I've been so blessed to not only have great people like Pat Osment and Jack Morgan that really lifted the sales up here in Stillwater, and the people that I have now that it's allowed me to become a state senator. It's the only way I could do it, is to have a good group of people backing me up at work, because as me and Trish found out, it's not a 4-month-a-year job. It is not a 4-month-a-year job. Here we are out of session, and I'm, pardon the pun, Steve, about to scramble out of here because I have to go down to the state regents and meet with them about something going on in my district. So I'm really blessed to have really, really good people, and we can't make a product without good people. All right. Well, thank y'all very, very much. It's been enjoyable talking to y'all. And as I said, the real anchor of Triple Play Sports is the morning scramble, and we're going to have Steve Daniels come up now, and he's going to go into more detail about it. And then when I walk out the door to go to my next meeting, no telling what he's going to talk about.
Well, I'm glad I came to find out we're at record sales now. We'll talk. We really do appreciate the invite here today. And I really didn't know whether I was going to need. No, I didn't know how long he was going to be here. So I decided to write notes. And in true tradition of radio, I didn't have a 3x5 card. So I found a VIP admissions to the Oklahoma Steam Threshing and Gas Engine Association. for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, May the 8th, through June, actually. So if you want to go to that, we've got that. But when you're looking at where Triple Play is right now, I don't know that we knew where it was going when I got there, because I was hired. I think, Bill, you called me. Jerry Vaughn called me, first of all. I was working. I have a syndicated show, which Bill still allows us to moonlight, which I appreciate. And it works for everybody. But it was sent out across the state, and it's called Sports Profile. And within that show, I was also able to do a lot of work in the Tulsa market. And I was doing a scoreboard show for the University of Tulsa. And Jerry Vaughn, who is no longer with us, actually called me and said, you need to come and talk about hosting the pregame show. I think that's how this all started. And so I started off with the pregame show back before Tom Dorado was still working for the network. And so therefore, Tom wasn't available. And so I did the show, and it was a lot more work back then, actually, because Tom does most of the work now. He definitely does most of the talking, which is a good thing. And he does. He works his tail off on the show. But when we did the pregame then, and then I got another call from Bill and Jerry Vaughn, and I was actually offered, they said, why don't you be the program director, which I wanted no part of. That's a lot of work. And there were others who would have been a lot better at it than me, because you're doing the scheduling, and we're very lucky now that we have, as you mentioned, Jordan Woodruff before, and Jordan does all that. And that's what the program director does. He does the scheduling, he oversees things, and he looks after that. And we're very lucky that we have everybody in place there. I thought one of the things I would tell was you learn what not to do. And there's been a lot of those, and Bill gives us margin for error. When I first came there, I was syndicating a show around, and one of the interviews I would do on a weekly basis was with Sherry Cole, with Oklahoma University. Bad idea. But I didn't know it was a bad idea, because I was making money on that. I had sponsors that would do that. I would send those interviews out to several different stations, and then that's how you make money in radio. You off the sponsors. And so I asked Bill if that was all right, and I don't think he did a cartwheel, but he let me do it. Is that about right? So every Tuesday morning at 8:30, I would have this really nice interview with Sherry Cole, which people hated. You listened to it then? And Sherry's a very nice person, but she was also the enemy team. And at that same time, we had started on a weekly basis having Kirk Butke, the great Kirk Butke, come in. He came in on Wednesdays. Sherry would be on Tuesdays. That did not make Kirk Butke happy. And so I got called up actually to Kirk Butke's office once. Here he is at Boone Pickens Stadium. Is the office still the same that Jim Littell has? Same one? And so it overlooked the stadium. So Kirk Butke shows me what a dream job he had. He goes, I've worked this hard for this job. And he looks over the field at his office, and he said, when I drive in on Tuesday mornings, I hear you and Sherry Cole. And so he invited me to think about that for a little while. And I told him I really couldn't change it right now, because she was on for the rest of the year. He wasn't very happy about that, but we agreed to disagree. And then after that, we moved on. But Coach Butke was so competitive, and later on he did tell me he appreciated the fact that she was on and he admired her, but that drove him crazy hearing the opposition. And I did hear, although Kent said you didn't mind it at all. I heard lots of people that did, because lots of them, and some were really mad at me. And then I talked to Bill about it, I think afterwards, and I said, we may move on from that. He said, really? So that was a pretty good move. So that's why you don't hear Sherry Cole on. A few years ago in 2015, when Larry Reese was battling his throat cancer, I filled in for him doing PA. And one of them was the Bedlam game against the women. And after the game, or right before the game, when you're doing the lineups and all this, Sherry comes up to me, and I was afraid in front of all these Cowboy fans, Cowgirl fans, she was going to give me a hug. And I thought, if I get a hug from Sherry Cole on the sideline here, I'm dead. I did not. So sometimes you learn what not to do more than to do. And what to do was be local. And being local, I can look around here and I see Trish Ranson. And the beauty of my job, which I think I have the best job in town, is that not only do I have great guests, but they become friends. Trish Ranson, Dr. Mark Moore here in the corner. And I haven't talked to you in a while. We need to get together. And it's not his fault, it's mine on that. Jim Halligan. And I now call him Jim, which I never would have before. because I would ask him, I said, what should I call you? And whether it was president, because we used to talk when you were the president, and then he was Senator Halligan, and then he was Jim, he said. I just don't feel comfortable calling him Jim. For some reason, I sort of do now. Kevin Clark, I've known for a long time, and he's a friend. He's here in the corner and doing the audio, I think, on this. And he's a valuable member here. So you get to know people. I'm probably going to be overlooking some. Good to see you. Mr. Norman is here. So that's part of what the community is. It's about what Stillwater is and what we need. And also not making lists, because lists can be, we have the newspaper here, and we have a great newspaper. For this size market, we have a great newspaper. But you can get your list there. You can get it on the internet. What we can offer is conversation. And that's what we do. And part of conversation, I think, is also listening. And so I'm not an expert really on anything. But I know when it comes to the state politics, Trish Ranson and Bill Coleman are. When it comes to the community and the superintendent, Dr. Mark Moore is. When it comes to other things, whether it's, you mentioned Jesse Martin before, OSU Athletics, Jesse Martin is the expert. So bring the experts in, listen to them. And on top of all that, besides being local, being entertaining, because I think early in the morning, it has to be fun to listen to. So sometimes, I know it takes a while to get used to that, doesn't it, Trish? And the fact that we're not going to come in here and just read the list. If she has a list, it can be serious. We've had serious conversations. But sometimes we're talking about her learning to play the auto harp, which she does at bluegrass festivals all over the country. We also exaggerate sometimes on the scramble. I'm not sure she plays it all over the country, but you do play it. And so we mainly try to have fun. And we mentioned, Mr. McDonald came up to me and told me, you don't look like you sound. Can I say something to you? You don't either. Because he calls up, I don't know, every week or two with something. And the beauty is all the guests know him. Yeah. And so when he was coming over there, I'm going, I don't know who this guy is, but I can tell he's friendly. No, that's not what I thought. I said, I can tell I don't know who this guy is, but I hope he's friendly. And he was. That's right. And so the beauty of the show is getting to know the community, being about the community. And we're on 5 channels every morning now. When we're on, and should I give those? Because you were doing the sales pitch. It's AM 1020, AM 1580, 105.1 FM, which I think is the one most people listen to. Also 93.1, and then if you're in Ponca City, it's on 93.3. So we also reach the Ponca audience. So really, it's about being local and knowing that your friends are there to listen to you, and knowing that they're a good group of people also. And that's what we try to do. So, and I'll take any questions too, or comments, especially questions. We've had guests on because the folks at NOC were raising, they had a charity drive for it. But as far as just having a solid program, we have not. That sounds good. Would you be willing to come on? You can. And another thing is to know your guest. Some are 7 o'clock guests because they'll be there on time. Some are this guy, and we've got you set for 9:35. It sounds like you're a little later on. So, but that'd be a great topic, and ideas like that come up and say, can we do this? When the one thing that I thought was I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I found it rewarding, was coming to work every day during COVID at its peak, and Stillwater Medical Center jumped up and they were on with us at least 2 days a week, whether it was Scott Petty, or on Wednesdays we have what we call Wellness Wednesday, which is sponsored by Stillwater Medical Center, but they send doctors, and we have RNs, we have all kinds of, and Oklahoma Health Department was on, for instance, today. And they were on right before, I think you were on right after the Lieutenant Governor this morning, by the way. He was really good. And Bill was too. No, but he's talking tourism and everything. And so it's not with Senator Coleman and with Trish Ranson, we do get into policy, but we don't argue about it. And so I think being a listener is part of it. And when you hear both sides, you can understand both sides. You don't have to agree with both sides. So I hope that's the beauty of it, is the fact that you listen to what, and I know we have Rob Hill, who's the emergency management director, And he said he didn't have many friends that I think is Rob here? I think he said he didn't have many Democratic friends. And so when they listened to Trish on Fridays, they realized, sometimes she actually makes sense. I think that's about what but I kind of paraphrase that a little bit. But the fact that they can listen to whether it's Trish who has a D by her name or Bill who has an R by his name, and realize that they both are trying for the best and want the same result, and that's a better Oklahoma. And so I think it is important to be able to listen to what they say. If you just tune them out, and I don't have all the answers, so it makes it easy for me to listen. So, yep. The most fun interviews, I do have and I don't know that it's a weakness, but I do have a comfort zone, and we have probably 25 to 35 that rotate around. And so, and there is a comfort. I mean, I think it's not only comfortable for me, but I think it's easier to listen to, because if somebody's on the radio for the first time, it's it's hard, and you answer yes or no or short. And once you get past that, then you get to know them. Well, one is famous, and so I don't know if but it was rewarding. I had Art Linkletter on once, and he was awesome. And so since I didn't screw it up, I thought that went well. And so hard ones have been the yes or no's, and where it's just not their thing. And usually, if it's not a good interview, and I really believe this, if it didn't go well, it's my fault. I mean, because there are different ways you can do it, and so usually if it didn't go well. Now, if it's somebody, and I don't really have any of these, if it was somebody that you didn't like, that would be hard, or respect. And so, what did we talk to Art Linkletter about? Art Linkletter, I'm glad you asked that. I didn't anticipate it. He had a patent for things like the boomerang, the hula hoop, and I think the electric blanket. He was a business person. He didn't invent these things, but he got in on the business end of it. And also, he goes back to early days of radio, which I really appreciate. He helped do the grand opening of Disneyland, and he was the host along with Ronald Reagan. And so when you're talking to a guy who goes back and can drop those names, that's pretty cool. And so he's when I usually I don't write questions out, because I do believe if you have the questions written out, then you're not listening to the answer. And because you can hear that sometimes, because you can hear, okay, they didn't understand that they just said something drastic or whatever it was, and then it didn't follow up on it. So I really don't, but I prepared pretty good for Art Linkletter because I knew he knew how this business worked. So, anybody else? Yeah. Brian Jones. Scott, and by the way, I didn't mention Scott before. Scott's a regular on there, and he's with Simmons Bank. And so he's going to be on tomorrow morning, I think, with United Way, right? And that's one of the beauties that I enjoy, because you become immersed and know different people in the community. But United Way is awesome. And we have had the United Way on since 2009, I think. We really expanded the show in 2009, and then we've added time. Where we started off going 1 hour for a little bit because I didn't know it'd work. We went 8 to 9, and then we went 8 to 10, and 8 to 9:30. And then Robert Allen would go way too long, and bless his heart, he could do it. But and now we go 3 hours, and Robert goes 3 hours. But you'll be on with United Way tomorrow. But United Way has been a gift to us, I think, because it's such an active group in the community. They have 22 agencies, if you're not familiar with them, and they make goal, and the money goes to where it's supposed to be. And for instance, Habitat for Humanity, who Jim Halligan has a soft spot for, they're part of that also. But as far as getting the infractions thing, I'll bring you in to ask the questions. But he did say that the phone numbers of the committee are online and emails, so I know it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But also the breaking news thing that Senator Coleman kind of mentioned. There's been a lot of breaking news, and sometimes it happens in the morning. And we've had, and I was thinking when you were talking about the homecoming tragedy, when I've been on the air, we've had two other tragedies, and one was Kurt Butke, which that was hard. That was probably my hardest day because Kurt was a good friend. He was on every Wednesday with us, and so, and I mean, any time a guy calls you up to his office to lecture you, that's a good guy. And so that was a great loss, and that was a hard day because I got a call from a senior administrator on my way into work at 5:30 in the morning, and so I knew it 2.5 hours before we could tell that there'd been a plane crash, and I knew who was on it, and we had to hold on for until 8 o'clock because the person who was near the top at OSU said the families don't know. Kurt's family did, but not everybody knew. So we had to hold on to that. The other one was we had a shooting at the school where there was actually a suicide. And I was thinking of that when Bill was talking, because I don't know if he remembers, but Senator Halligan was on the air with me then. Do you remember that? And he actually helped, which I love about the guest, because he was a man who had been in a leadership role. And so we kind of pivoted, okay, to that. And Senator Halligan stayed with us probably for a half hour. And that was tough because there was a lockdown and we knew there'd been a shooting at the school. And to be able to have the former longtime president of the university talk about how this can be handled, what are you going through? And I know all the things you went through at OSU. So having those people, you know, in your well of information, if you will, that's a gift. So thanks for doing that. I don't know if you remember or not, but he stayed there for quite a while with us. So the breaking events are also part of why I think radio is just a terrific medium. And we didn't have the Elvis exit music. I told Bill yesterday, I said, when you leave, we'll have the music queued up. But we're about done now. We're about done. But anyway, any other questions? Senator? Third cousins, once removed, I think. Actually, the TV 31 relationship, before I started here, I worked across town when I worked with Casey Kendrick. In fact, we first approached Bill Coleman, and he can listen on his app now. But I don't know what year it was, probably 98, 99, something like that. And FMs just didn't do talk. They just didn't. That was the rule anyway. And we were doing a show, which we still do. We've done it forever, called Sportsline, which we actually sent out to, we're actually doing it, believe it or not, in Enid. We drive to Enid because they had an uplink and then they would distribute it across the state on satellite. And so we approached Bill about doing a regular morning show. And he said, talk is just not going to work on FM because it was music. And that's before you had apps and Sirius Radio and Pandora, and that's where you could get your music. Now it's changed because now if you want to hear a song, if you want to hear Trish Ranson play the auto harp, there's probably an app for that. If there's not, there should. But we approached Bill about doing a show then. And he said, you know, all talk, we're not going to do that. Veered away. Casey ended up working at TV 31, which was actually based in Langston. That's where their studio was. And then when when Bill moved the station downtown, where it is now, Casey's not here to defend himself, so I'll assume this is the way it happened. The fact that it would be in close proximity, so they were able to move in adjacent to that, and we've been working pretty close together. And he actually, we're not a part of them, but Casey does his show, TV 3101, from our studio, and it's simulcast on TV as well. So technically and financially, there's no relationship, but as far as everything else, there kind of is, if that makes any sense at all. So I don't know, it's for sale if you're into investing, which I know you are. Anything else? Go ahead. That's like one of those where you're auctioning, right? Where you actually bid on something. He bought the painting. So anyway, I thank you very much. And Jimmy Ray Mead, the way this started, you sent me a text saying, is it all right if I have the information for Bill Coleman? And so I sent him that and then said, what about you doing a different one? And I said, what about doing it together? So that's kind of how we ended up doing this. So thanks very much for the invite, and I'll turn it over to you. Thanks very much.